Okay, here we go. New threat assessment. With a pretty good topic, I think. Here we have Walking Ballista. Pretty prolific card. Walking Ballista is a artifact creature construct with 0 power and 0 toughness. Its casting cost is XX. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 4 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista, and you can remove a +1/+1 counter from the Ballista, and it will deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Walking Ballista is a pretty powerful and prolific card. It goes into a bunch of different decks. What makes Walking Ballista so great? Well, there's a few factors. Number one, it's a colorless artifact, which means there are no color restrictions on the decks it can go into. It works with +1/+1 counters. It has instant speed interaction that deals damage, and it's a mana sink with its double X casting cost and its 4 mana activation to put a +1/+1 counter on it. If someone drops this on the table and they're in white or in black, you might want to be prepared for a Heliod the Sun-Crowned or a Mikaeus the Heliod to hit the battlefield across from you. These are notable 2-card combos, so it's something to be aware of, that if they are running Walking Ballista, you might be looking at them dropping a Heliod Sun-Crowned the next turn, or immediately after Walking Ballista hits the field, and then they're just going to go all out and take the game. Heliod Sun-Crowned is 2 mana and 1 white for a 5/5 legendary enchantment creature god. It has indestructible as long as your devotion to white is less than 5. Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. Now that's a big deal, but what makes this is the next ability. 1 and 1 white. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. And that is what makes Walking Ballista and Heliod a killer. You get the Ballista on the field, you have Heliod on the field, you pay 1 and 1 white to give the Ballista lifelink. Now every time you remove a counter from the Ballista for it to deal damage, you gain life because the Ballista dealt damage and it gets a counter. This turns your Walking Ballista into a machine gun of +1/+1 counters that can take the opponents down. The next card we have is Mikaeus the Heliod, 3 and triple black for a 5/5 legendary zombie cleric. Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. But here's the important part. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have undying. That means whenever the creature dies, it comes back to the field with a +1/+1 counter. Now, if you have a way to repeatedly kill off your Walking Ballista with some kind of sacrifice out like Viserys here, then your Walking Ballista with Undying is going to come back with a +1/+1 counter, and you can shoot the whole table. These are important cards to watch out for. It's pretty dangerous. I actually lost on turn 1 while I was down in Vegas in a CEDH tournament. Someone flash hulked out Walking Ballista and Mikaeus the Heliod, and well, that was game. Walking Ballista is an instant threat, even if it's cast where X is 2. Since mana abilities don't use the stack, creating infinite mana usually cannot be responded to, which means activating Walking Ballista and going for the win can be done even with interaction on the stack. Aside from spells with split second, like Crow's and Grip, or Word of Seizing, Walking Ballista is extremely dangerous if it should hit the field. The other thing about Walking Ballista is that it's hard to get rid of. Being an artifact that costs X and X, which is basically 0 anywhere but the stack, it's very easy to get back from the graveyard. Such cards like Auriok Salvager, 3 mana and 1 white for a 2/4 human soldier. Pay 1 and 1 white, return target artifact card from converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Or Scrap Trawler, a 3 mana, 3/2, colorless artifact creature. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. This makes Walking Ballista, on top of being a dangerous combo piece, easily recurable. Another great thing about Walking Ballista is that it's very easy to find. As a creature and an artifact, most tutors will find Walking Ballista, and since it's colorless, like I said before, it has no color restrictions on the kind of decks that it might wind up in. Cards like Enlightened Tutor, Fabricate, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Recruiter, Worldly Tutor, or even the humble Inventor's Fair can all reach into your library and snag the Walking Ballista. Walking Ballista is an extremely dangerous card with its activated abilities, its cheap mana cost, and its free potential to go into any deck that can abuse it. Walking Ballista is a must get rid of threat. I don't care who at the table is playing it. If it's across the field from you, it has to go. What are your thoughts on Walking Ballista? Thank you for joining me today. Let's keep assessing.